Hi guys, I hope you're having an amazing day so far. I'm really excited. This is the first time I'm doing a live interview and kind of like a live collaboration. So I'm super pumped to get going with this. And what I've decided to do is start to do little Release to Thrive interview series where I'm connecting with different people and interviewing them and talking. So today's guest is Kelsey, and I'm super pumped to have her on here. So I'll get her on and see if this works. Yeah, so we're just gonna talk all about whatever comes up, different things, spirituality, healing.
Hi. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Wait, can you guys see me?
You're sideways on mine.
Because I set up the tripod this way and I don't.
Oh, okay. Is your camera like horizontal?
Well, my phone's horizontal
because
of the tripod.
Okay.
If anything, I can just hold it.
I was gonna say, yeah, I can just kind of turn that way and then.
No, don't worry. I'm just gonna hold it. Hold on.
Okay.
I thought that it was gonna switch like the screen once we went live, but it didn't.
Yeah.
This is my first time going live with using the tripod, so I was not aware of that. So sorry.
No, that's okay. Hi, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. So it sounds like you had a bit of a busy Sunday.
Yeah. I've been doing readings since 8 o'clock this morning. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay, well, I'll let you introduce yourself and what you do then, and with your readings, and just kind of share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. All right. So hello, everyone. I am Kelsey. Kelsey Crystal is my Instagram name. My middle name is actually Crystal. I'm a clairvoyant medium. I do readings for people, and I take a trauma-informed approach to my readings. So what that means is I kind of do a deep dive, or try to at least, with I take kind of what I picked up from the reading, and I relate it back to things such as like shadow work, inner child work, matrix re-imprinting, things like that. Because trauma was something that was, really important for me to touch base on. And especially for my clients, in order for them to fully be able to thrive and really find their purpose and do what they wanted to do, I realized that a lot, and I know this from my own personal experience as well, a lot of things that hold people back from stuff like that is like blocks, such as emotional blocks, trauma blocks, financial blocks. And really, from my own personal experience, the way that I was able to remove those was through things such as like shadow work, inner child work, and things like that. And since I'm able to pick up quite a lot, it helps a lot with doing those methods, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's so amazing because I think everyone can benefit from like doing that inner work, right?
Yeah.
And shadow work and inner child. And there's just so many different components and layers that we're carrying based on our experiences and our upbringing and everything like that. So it's really important to like do the work and dive into that.
Yeah, so important. So important.
Yeah. How long have you been doing this?
I started doing readings back in December, actually. So I always knew that I was clairvoyant, but I guess I was a little too scared of what other people thought. So I was too scared to do readings for like the longest time, because I come from a very like small town, and the area that I'm from is very against things like that. My family was very against it. And I was like, oh, I don't want people to think I'm like a freak or a weirdo and blah, blah, blah. So I really it was all just anxiety and fear pretty much. So yeah, I started in December, and it was like the best decision I've ever made, because I'm so like grateful for how many people I've been able to help so far. I mean, it's crazy because I truly didn't realize how many people I would be able to help. And so it's definitely like a refreshing feeling, Yeah.
And it's nice that you're able to like embrace your natural gifts and stuff like that, and just show up and be able to help people with them, because I think especially when it comes to spirituality and stuff like that, obviously the conversation is getting there, and it's a lot more open now, but there's
Yeah.
still kind of a lot of people who are really unsure of it, and
Right.
and there's some very close-minded people, so then it can make you be afraid to really step into that. Yeah, especially with your, like, if you said if your family had different beliefs, and then you all of a sudden like, oh, but yeah. So how did you, I'm curious about this, and like with being clairvoyant and everything, but is that like as a kid then, were there times where you were very like aware of this, but it was just like that's who you were, or did you start to realize it as you got a bit older, or when did you kind of figure that out even?
Good question. If my eyes are wandering, that means I'm thinking.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a kid, I would always have dreams, and the dreams that I would have would be like crazy accurate. Like I remember at 7, 8 years old, I would have these dreams of things that were going to happen, and then they would happen exactly like my dream, but it would happen like a couple months later. But then when I got older, when I was like 13, I remember was the first time I was able to like get visions of things. I had come home from school one day, and my twin sister, I'm a twin, she was like, well, no, she stayed home from school sick that day, I believe. I came home, and she had a friend over, guy friend. I had no clue what he looked like. No, nothing. And all of a sudden I was like listing everything he wore, down to like the color, the brand, everything, like what he looked like. And she was like, oh my God, how do you know all this? And I was like, I don't know. It just randomly came to me. And so that was really like my first vision I ever got. And then the older and older I got, it just became stronger and stronger. And then in 2017, I went through my spiritual awakening. Someone said live reading now, please. Hi. You can message me on my Instagram. So anyway, the older I got, it was like the stronger my gifts became. So in 2017, when I went through my awakening, which was terrifying, I'm sure you know, spiritual awakenings are quite terrifying. I also, in addition to being clairvoyant, I also had become clairaudient, clairsentient, and claircognizant as well. Clairaudient was interesting because I remember sitting on my couch one day, and all of a sudden it sounded like a radio was like playing in my ear, and it was like sounded like people were talking. And I had my friend over, and I was like, did you hear that? He was like, what are you talking about? And I thought I was going insane, but it was just my clairaudience kind of coming into fruition, I guess you could say. So yeah, it's and I learned that I had these gifts a lot through a lot of my own traumas and health issues as well. And yeah, but really the spiritual awakening helped. It kind of blew open my gifts, really. It was very, very interesting because I was like, you know, when you're going through an awakening and you're just like, are things ever going to get better? And you're like stuck in this mindset. You're like, what is going on? My life is gone crazy. And I thought I was going crazy, but no, just my gifts were developing. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, no, it's so true though. I think so many people, I mean, spiritual awakening, I guess, means I feel like everyone has their own experience with it, and so they have their own way they relate to it, or what they would associate with it. But it really is like you're kind of like stuck, and you have to figure things out, and it isn't really the easiest position, but it's what helps you to uncover your gifts or figure what you need to be doing, or helps get you on the path. And just like transforms everything. So it's quite terrifying though. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure you know. Yeah, definitely. It's like a shocker for sure. Yeah. Clairaudience is something I've always been a little bit like intimidated by.
Really?
Yeah, just because I feel like I'd be scared to like have the voices or hear something, but I'm very clairvoyant, I mean. And I have the dreams, and more so the dreams though than like like signs during the waking life, but definitely dreams are a big one for me. But yeah, the audio kind of intimidates me for sure.
Really? Wait, why does it intimidate you though?
I think I'd be like nervous to hear things.
It's interesting for sure. I'll say that. It's more so for me. I feel like when I'm doing readings, like I get visions of things with my clairvoyance, and then I hear, it's usually the names that I'll hear.
Yeah.
But then again, like my pen will draw it out too, because I also do automatic writing. But yeah, I just hear like random things. So,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And it's cool. I just think it's so unique and like it's so neat because everyone has their own gifts, like whether they're clairaudient, clairvoyant, or any of the clairs, like we all have our own gifts anyway. But it really is like finding your new unique ones and finding what works best for you.
Yes. Yeah, because I feel like everyone, I mean, I've met so many people who may have all the same gifts that I have, but they're just stronger with like the clairvoyance or the clairaudience or things like that. I think it's just like, I don't know, it's just different for everyone. So,
yeah. What's one of the, like, do you have any like favorite stories or favorite examples of something with a client or anything that happens that I'm putting you on the spot with all these?
I know, I'm like, uh-oh. Wait, what do you mean by anything that happened exactly?
Well, like something that came through or something that like you picked up on, and just like, I don't know if there was any, I'm sure you have, like, I'm sure every person, because you'd be bringing answers or something, like every person would have their own breakthroughs or like their own like aha moments, right? But
yeah, sorry, I didn't know what you meant exactly. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, since I started doing readings, I've learned a lot about people in general since starting to do my readings. And I realized that everybody, like the number one thing that people want is they just want to be understood, and they want to be heard, and they want to be seen, and they want to be loved. And that's it. It's literally as simple as that. I think we as a human race, we just complicate it. Unfortunately, but it's really just as simple as that. But no, yeah, I do have a lot of breakthrough moments because there's a lot of times where it's kind of like an aha moment because it'll be something I for some reason, I'm able to pick up past more than present. I can pick up present and future as well. But for some reason, I'm able to pick up past much, much more. It's interesting. I have no clue why. But hey, I'm not complaining. But no, there's been a lot of aha moments because I think a lot of times, since I'm able to pick up so much from the past, it kind of gives people a new perspective on the situation at hand, if that makes sense. And then they're kind of like, oh, like, you know, oh, that makes sense. Or, oh, you know, for example, I was doing a reading for a girl about 2 weeks ago, and she was dealing with some, you know, personal issues between her and her spouse. And she said, oh, she's a life coach too. And she was like, you know, I really want to keep doing the life coaching, but I'm not really sure like how to help people and stuff like that. But she had helped her husband through a lot of his own emotional issues and things like that. And I was like, and since I was able to pick up so much from her past with how she had helped her husband, I was like, but wait, if you're able to help your husband that much, then you can help anyone. And she goes, oh my God, I never thought about that. And literally it was almost like an aha moment. And it was like block released. And I don't know if that makes sense the way I described that, but yeah, because I was able to pick up so much from her past with her and her husband and what she had helped him through, because I knew nothing about her, you know, prior to reading her. So yeah, it's interesting. I get a lot of things like that. Usually I can't think of any other like specific examples right now. I feel like I just get it. You know what's so interesting? When people will kind of ask me how I do my readings, and I kind of freeze and I don't really know what to say sometimes, which is so crazy. But I think it's because when I'm doing a reading, it's like I go into another dimension, or I go into like another headspace. So as soon as I finish the reading and I disconnect from the energy, it's like I kind of forget everything that I picked up, to be honest. And it's almost like I'm in a dream state. So I don't, you know, like when you wake up from a dream and you you cannot remember the dream for the life of you.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it feels sometimes. It's interesting. And I don't use any cards during my readings. I do automatic writing. If you've ever seen the show Hollywood Medium with Tyler Henry, I basically do what he does. I draw, but I let the pen like guide itself. But yeah, it's interesting because I do get a lot of like aha moments, even too with since I'm able to pick up past, I can pick up a lot of people's childhoods and kind of relate it directly back to why they attracted the person that they're with now, and kind of how that all plays out too, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I've been to a couple mediums before, and I know one of them said the exact same thing you did, where like after she finishes doing the reading and stuff, like she doesn't really remember most of what was discussed because she was in like that different state, and then all of a sudden you're like back in like the 3-dimensional, and you're just kind of like so lost or confused about what just happened. Yeah,
it's so crazy because it's literally like. And then I'll have a lot of times where clients will be like, remember during last reading you picked this up? And I'm like, I honestly don't remember. Like, I have it written down. Like, I write, like, you know, I'll have it in my notebook and stuff. But I'm just like, I'll have to check back and see because I don't really remember what I picked up. So
yeah,
people keep asking for live readings.
I know. Well, it's up to you if you want to do anything, but I know you've had a lot of readings today, so I also don't want to put you on the spot because I know it takes energy and stuff as well, so.
Yeah, I've only done one reading live ever. It was like a month ago, but it was like it wasn't like people in the comments, it was with like my client of mine like this, so.
Yeah. Oh, I just had another question for you, and then I totally lost it.
No, you're fine. I talk a lot, so you probably got distracted.
No. What was I going to say? I'm sure it was a really good one. I'm just like drawing a blank. So I'll just go, I'll go to the big question that I was going to ask you that I talked about before of like, in order to get to where you are now, what did you have to release? What did you have to let go of to kind of step into this place in your life? And,
right.
And there could be multiple things. Like it might have been, might be more than one thing, but.
Yeah. Gosh, I had to release so much, to be honest. It's so funny because before I started doing readings and before my spiritual awakening, I was a totally different person. Totally. Yeah. I mean, I was like, I cared too much about other people thought. I was real high maintenance. I was just like so different and so like constantly anxious. And so I think I obviously had to release a lot of that, but I also mainly had to release a lot of like, fear of the unknown. And for me, I used to be a huge perfectionist. So like I had to know what was going to happen and I had to know like every step prior to it happening. And if I didn't know, I would freak out in the past. And really, I realized that my perfectionism was coming from my own lack of control in my own life. Because I didn't really have much control over, I'm trying to think of how to word this. I didn't really have much control over my own like emotional well-being or things like that back then. I was just kind of like all over the place. I was really anxious. And just, I've been through a lot of trauma in general. So it was just like, but really I had to release the fear of the unknown and what other people thought of me. If you are doing readings for people and marketing yourself through Instagram, you kind of just have to drop the fear of what people are going to think, because you are going to get, the people who think you're a fraud, you're going to, the people who don't believe in it, you're going to get the people who judge you, whatever. And I remember when I first began doing readings, I would like cry and I'd be so upset. I'd be like, oh my God. But, I guess just I really had to release the fear of what people thought of me and the fear of the unknown and just the fear of, really just like, you know, if this doesn't work out, what are my next steps? Things like that. But mainly, I would say the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
If I had to boil it down to one, because I had never done this before. I mean, I knew my whole life that I was clairvoyant, parashad, my friend just joined. But I just, you know, this was a totally new path for me because I was always used to working in corporate America and stuff like that. So it was really the fear of the unknown, which is a scary thing. I mean, it's, you know, it's definitely, yeah, scary for sure. So.
Yeah. And I think like that's something I still struggle with at times too, because you know, we want to know exactly what's going to happen or what the next step is, or that things are going to work out, and having that plan is such a big thing. I think that most people like to, they like to kind of have things set up and organized, and we're taught to, like, you know, go to university or college, get a degree, then get your corporate job or your steady job, and then buy a house, have a family. Like, we're kind of taught the structure. And so when you start doing something that doesn't fit with that, it can be really scary and bring up a lot of anxiety and doubt and everything.
Yeah, for sure. Because I feel like anytime you do anything that deviates away from the norm, like you were saying, it's just people kind of tend to judge you. So you just kind of have to roll with the punches and like not really care what people think. Because if you care what people think when doing this type of work, from my own experience, it's gonna kind of like eat you alive. So just dropping the fear of what people think as well. So
definitely. And like you said too, just like everyone is gonna have their different opinions or their different views on things, and that's something I've had to come to accept with like Instagram anyway and social media. Like, but if you don't share your opinion, or if you're not true to who you are, then you're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to feel inauthentic. You're going to have all this extra tension. So it's really about being able to just show up as who you are and not be afraid if everyone doesn't like it.
Yeah. And I love that, because that's so important. And I think for me, it was like, for the longest time, I also had to release like this distorted image I had of myself. I always had this like certain image in my head of myself, and I feel like everyone does to an extent. I feel like mine was a little bit more extreme though. And then I kind of had to release that too and just be like, this is the new me. And I always operated from my masculine energy in the past. So I was trying to also learn how to operate from my feminine energy as well, which was really tough for me. Because when you're conditioned to operating from one for so long, you're like, So I also had to release that too. I had to release the whole, like, you know, I don't have to operate from my masculine energy in order to be viewed as like respected or strong. And that was just a thought and a belief that I had held on to for so many years. So
yeah, totally. Do you think that with having your own business, that it was kind of hard to, even though it's an intuitive business, do you still feel like there was a lot of like that masculine side of like forcing and hustle and all that, or were you able to kind of just like go with the flow?
No, definitely the masculine force and hustle, and I still feel that way. So it's still a struggle, you know. And it's funny because the girl who does my readings, we were trying to work through this. When was it, like last month? And she's like, you need to start operating more from your feminine energy. And I'm like, how do I do that? And I'm like, if I do that, people are like, I started overthinking it, like, oh my God, people are going to view me as like weak or blah, blah, which obviously is not the truth. But, you know, I was just so used to the masculine for so long. And it was difficult for sure. But I mean, the masculine is still there to an extent because of what you were saying, like the hustle and all that stuff. But, I would say, I don't know, I changed it up. I play into both. But also, too, I feel like I have two different sides to me, too, because I have the masculine and the feminine, which everyone has, but I kind of go between both a little bit. And then I'm also a Pisces sun with a Leo moon, so it's kind of like, you know, the masculine and feminine, so it's interesting. Yeah,
no, that's really funny. I find that even, like, I caught myself when I was, like, really... I feel like with having your own business, there is that mentality too, like that it's such extreme hustle and that like, it's like, I got so caught up in that this winter, and like I was working like 12, maybe 14 hours a day, just being like, I have to get all these things done, and like so focused on that. Yeah. And all of a sudden I was like, okay, there's no balance here. Yeah. And like your mindset, your mood, all these things are affected because you're trying to push too hard instead of like, taking a step back. And yeah, like I love meditating anyway, but I had gotten so off track that I wasn't meditating as much. And when I started to do that again, even just like a little bit each day, all of a sudden like these amazing ideas were coming out in my meditations, and I was like, oh, like that's what I need to do. And all the answers came from finding that balance again.
Yeah, I know. And that's like, you literally nailed it, like spot on just now, because I literally gone through the same thing. Yeah. And it's like this, like, it's always like a dance between like, am I doing enough or am I doing too much? I feel like being an entrepreneur and, you know, running your business on social media, it's always a dance between that too, I feel like. And also too, it's a dance between boundaries as well. Of like, you know, wanting to help everyone, but then also having to set boundaries because you don't want to burn yourself out. So it's, yeah, you nailed it, like spot on, because I ended up in the same position. And to be honest, I couldn't, when I wasn't meditating for a while, it's like my brain just felt like brain foggy, and like ideas couldn't come to me as easily and things like that. And I was just like, what is going on? And it was just because there was no balance. So
yeah, totally. Yeah, I think the balance is huge. And I think it's just really about really like getting in tune with what works for you too, and realizing like just because it works for one person doesn't mean it works for everyone, and just because someone else is doing something doesn't mean you have to do that.
Yeah, so spot on.
Yeah, and with the masculine and feminine as well, just like yeah, you need to find your way to navigate that feels best for you, and that's what's going to work, and that's what's going to make you happier.
Yes. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's just a struggle for sure. I mean, did you ever struggle with that yourself, the masculine and feminine?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. With starting my own business for sure. And I kind of felt like I couldn't embrace the feminine side, and I felt like even if I don't know, I'd have these mindsets like, well, other people are working a 9-to-5 job, so like I have to work at least 9 to 5 each day, and then I'd usually work longer because there were other things, and but then I thought, okay, that doesn't make sense. And I remember reading a quote somewhere about how like it said the average person in their 8-hour day job probably only like maximize their workload in like 4 hours, and the other 4 hours were spent kind of like dilly-dallying, like taking breaks, talking, like so it wasn't like they're actually working their ass off the whole hours. Obviously some people do, and it depends on the job, but like it kind of made me rethink that I could actually embrace the feminine side and like do my meditations, do that stuff, and then like really have all this energy to power through with my work for 4 or 5 hours a day, and like crush out some stuff and then enjoy the rest of the day instead of feeling like I have to work the whole day long.
I can totally relate to that, like 100%. Yeah. Like everything you're saying, I can like relate to 1,000%, like spot on, nailed it.
Yeah. It's just that finding that balance is hard, and I think
it's really hard.
It's funny because even though we're aware of it, it's easy to get caught off track or get caught into like what we should be doing or whatever. So
yeah, but it's difficult because you don't want to feel like you're not doing enough.
Yeah.
But then when you're like hustling, you're like, oh my God, I'm burning out now. I'm doing too much. And so it's like, you know, it's just always the dance between or trying to find balance. So
Totally. Okay. What do you have anything else you want to share, or if like any little takeaways you want to end with? And then after that, you can just share where people can find you if they're interested in learning more about your readings and everything.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see, for a takeaway. I don't know. I'm trying to think.
We covered a lot.
I'm like, I don't know. I guess for a takeaway, well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on here. I really appreciate it. This is like great that you're doing this. Honestly, I think this is amazing work that you're doing. I mean, truly, this is going to help so many people, because one thing that I've noticed while doing my readings is, like I was saying earlier, a lot of people have a lot of blocks that they haven't removed or haven't released yet. And they aren't able to thrive because of it. And then they, they're confused as to why they're stuck, or as to why things are not progressing in any area of their life. And it's because they haven't released those. And I always say there's a difference between letting go and releasing. So when you let something go, what happens? You want it back. So I always say, don't let it go, release it. Because when you release it, you don't want it back. But when you let it, or when you lose something or let it go, you want it back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah, I'm like, does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that.
So, yeah, so it's like, release these blocks, whether they be trauma blocks or whatever. And a lot of times too, it's always, from my experience, from what I've realized from my readings, it's always either a financial block, mental trauma block, an emotional trauma block, or like a physical trauma block. It's always related back to trauma, in my opinion. But yeah, it's just so important to release that in order to thrive. And it's kind of like, I'm trying to think of, there's this quote and I can't remember what it is, but it's like, you have to let go what's no longer serving you in order to thrive. And that's in any aspect of life, to be honest. I mean, that's truly with anything, like friend-wise, relationship-wise, job-wise. If it's no longer serving you, release it and then thrive. So yeah, I guess that's my takeaway.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, and it's so true, because you can't build your foundation, like you can't keep building if your foundation isn't steady or sturdy. Like if you've got trauma and you're carrying this stuff, you can't really build on it. So it's so important to release it for good. And I love that about letting it go. Like, don't let it go. Release it.
Yeah, because it's so true. It's like, and I think one good example with this too is kind of like, when you go to the gym and you're trying to lose weight, but then you gain it back and you keep saying, well, I need to lose weight or lose this or lose that.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like if people like reworded that to like release, it would kind of maybe shift the mindset and change it. I don't know if that was a good example.
No,
but
I get it.
Yeah. So it's, and like when you lose a friend or lose a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, you start to miss them and you want them back or whatever. But if you release it,
it's kind of like the final. It's final. It's like, I'm good, gone, and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess that's like my takeaway. And again, I think this is great work that you're doing, because I think where a lot of people, from my own personal opinion, that one thing that I see on social media that's all too common, in my own personal opinion, is there's a lot of people who offer all these courses and stuff in order to like grow their business and things like that, but they're not getting to the root of the issue, which is releasing trauma or releasing whatever it is. And if they're not getting to the root of the issue, from my own personal experience, you can read all the self-help books you want, take all the courses you want, whatever. But from my own personal experience, nothing's going to fully work. And you'll always fall back into those, no, not always, but from my own personal experience, I always fall back into those habits until I release what I needed to release. Because it's kind of like, for example, when people make like their New Year's resolutions and everyone's at the gym like in January, and then they like in February it's like dead again and no one's there. Kind of like the same concept, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know if that was a good example I used, but you get what I'm saying here.
Like, you can have like the best intentions to start thriving in your business, in your relationships, in any area, but if you haven't done that releasing first, if you're still carrying that trauma, then come 1 month down the road or 2 months down the road, some block is gonna come back up, and you're gonna have to deal with it eventually, right? So I get what you're saying with that example.
Sorry, I'm like, wait, this makes sense. Sometimes I ramble and I don't realize I'm doing it. I'm like, okay, I need to shut up. But no, it's so true, because like, I even know from my own experience, if I signed up for things in the past and I didn't finish them, why was I not finishing it though? Why was I not following through with it? Because I hadn't released whatever trauma block I had. And it was, you know, I would be consistent for like a little bit, but then I would fall off.
Yeah.
And it was just like this back and forth, and I had no consistency. And I couldn't build any consistency until I was able to release. And so that's why I'm like, honestly, this work that you're doing is like truly amazing, because I like every day I see it on Instagram. That's like, oh, we're offering these courses, grow your business. I'm like, but you're not getting to the root of the issue.
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, so yeah. Okay, so everyone can find me on my Instagram handle is Kelsey Crystal _. It's KEL. Oh, it's up there. I think, can they see that? I don't know if they can see that.
I don't see it.
KELSEY Crystal CRYSTAL _. And then my website is linked in my bio. It's www.kelseycrystal2.com. So kelseycrystal2.com. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much for being on here with me and for sharing what you do. And like, I think it's amazing that you're helping people with their blocks too, and really helping them to release, to thrive, and start to find space in their own lives and move forward in a really empowered way. So thank you for being here, and thank you for doing what you do.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and thank you everyone for viewing.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, have a good day, everyone, and yeah, we'll talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.